Want to listen to this Ivory Tower Boiler Room or True Crime in Academia episode ad-free? Head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room, to listen to all of our podcast episodes without any ads. You get access to our video episodes, our bonus episodes, and even more exclusive content, including merchandise. It only starts at $5 a month, so head on over to our Patreon. Again, it's patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And while you're at it, you know what would be such a help is if you could rate and review the Ivory Tower Boiler Room on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And make sure that you follow us and share out our podcast to all of your friends. It truly does help. And I want to thank you all. It means so much that you're listening to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. I hope that you enjoy this episode.
Hey, true crime friends. Welcome back to another episode of True Crime in Academia. I am your host, Mary DiPipi. I hope you all had a wonderful week this week, and I hope you are all looking forward to a wonderful weekend. I know I am. Last weekend, actually, we were able to take Chico to the beach. I don't know if any of you saw my story or saw the post on my personal Instagram, but yeah, we took Chico, he's a little chihuahua, to the beach, my boyfriend and I, and yeah, he enjoyed it. He had a really good time. We have taken him before last year, I think, and he did okay, but it was his first time, so like I was always curious to see how he would do coming back. And it seemed like he really enjoyed the water. He's still afraid of like the waves coming at him, but as long as they're like low enough, he's okay, and he can walk in the water, and he likes digging in the sand and all that stuff. And then unlike last year, we were able to take him on the boardwalk, which was nice. We were getting annoyed though, because some people were trying to say that, or not trying to say, they did say that he was fat. And I'm like, how dare you fat shame our dog? Even though technically he's not our dog. But, how dare you fat shame this poor dog? Leave him alone. But then there were also like some people who did understand. Like, it was funny because certain people would be like, oh, is he friendly or is he a chihuahua? And we're like, he's a chihuahua, so tread lightly. There was one person who was able to do it successfully, besides my parents, because he also got to meet my parents, which was cool. They were down for a completely different reason. Like, they just went down for the day, like my boyfriend and I did. But, of course, because we were both on the same boardwalk, we met up and, said hi and things like that. But it was the first time, like, they've met Chico before, but it was in a weird situation where I think he was being, like, just felt like he had to be more protective. Whereas this particular time, we were on the boardwalk. We were holding him, so, he was kind of okay. Not kind of, he was okay. He was chilling. He was enjoying the sun and everything, but he was very calm. Is basically what I'm getting at. And, he seemed to be really good around my parents. So I was excited about that. But just in general, it was so much fun to take him. And sorry, I'm fucking around with something over here. If you can hear the crinkling in the background, I apologize. I have like this box of pens and I'm like messing with like the adhesive over here. I don't know if you can hear that, but anyway, yeah, it was a really good time. Chico, I think, really had a good time too. So, aside from some of the negative attention, he also got a lot of positive. There were a lot of people saying that he was really cute. And I'm just like, yeah, I know. But you can't really say that. You just have to say thank you. but you know what I mean. House hunting is still going well. Hopefully we're gonna be looking at a couple houses this week. Well, no, not this week, next week. So, fingers crossed, but also kind of like I'm just excited to see the houses and just kind of, see what's out there and what's available, and I'm just excited to start the process and all that stuff. So, I also saw this past week, I saw The Nun 2. It was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I was expecting a little bit more from the ending. However, I think the story itself, aside from I'll just say it. It's not really a spoiler, but like the ending is a little abrupt. So aside from that, like I said, plot-wise, it was really, really good. So if you like horror and are into the whole Conjuring series, and maybe haven't ventured into like The Nun itself, I highly recommend. The first film was excellent as well. So, this was a really good follow-up. I was happy that the sequel didn't, totally suck. Like some other sequels, have sadly, sucked. Another thing that I've been watching more on the TV side, or not more, but on the TV side, is Southern Charm on Bravo. That was another COVID. I started watching the season, like whatever they put on, and, watched it the whole day because I was just binging Bravo at that time. So I started to kind of become familiar with the characters and the relationships. So when I heard that the new season was coming out, not this week, but last week, the first episode aired of this season, I decided I was going to watch it. And basically, there's like another kind of Scandival happening here, essentially. Except I would argue that this is better because both people involved were single. However, I would argue they were a little bit more newly single, and also their relationships to the other people. That's what makes this like worse and makes it shady. But in this episode, there was definitely a Scandival moment. One of the people involved, his name is Austin. He slept with one of his best friend's newly ex-girlfriend. But the other thing is that this ex-girlfriend is also friends now with, or was, I should say, the best friend or close friend of the ex of Austin. So it's very complicated, very almost like kind of incestuous, but not really. It's just, very close relationship people, that this is happening. But I thought it was hilarious. Literally before I sat down to record this, I saw a meme of this guy, Austin, and he's explaining what happened and of how this, the one ex of his best friend came to sleep at his house after one night of drinking. And it was very similar to Tom Sandoval, who was like, yeah, she slept in the guest room and this, that, and the third. And, it was very similar. And in this meme that I saw, I just had to laugh because it was of that scene of him explaining it. And it was just like, I was really waiting for Austin to say that Taylor, the girl, the ex, dipped out. Just because like it was, there were a lot of parallels from, this Southern Charm situation to the Vanderpump Scandival situation. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that all unfolds. But in podcast news, we are, and by we, I mean Andrew Rimby of Dr. Andrew Rimby, I should say, excuse me, of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. We are going to be collaborating on an upcoming episode, and it's going to be a little Scream themed. So there is going to be some talk of Danny Rowling and Cassie Jo Stoddard. So Stay tuned for that. I am very excited. It is going to be so much fun. I can't wait. It should be coming out sometime in October, but like I said, I will keep you all posted about that. If you would like to listen to this episode completely ad-free, go to patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room and become a subscriber today. Also, if you want, you can go and you can become a book club member. That is a new tier we have added. You can either do the book club for the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, True Crime and Academia, or both if you really want to. We have some really excellent choices for you guys. I know Andrew, I think, just decided on his. It's going to be amazing. I know it's a wonderful choice that he's picked. And then on the True Crime and Academia side, we have a book about the Amityville Horror, and the other option that you can vote on social media is about hauntings in asylums, prisons, and sanatoriums. So make sure to vote on those. Make sure you become a subscriber to that level for the book club, so that way we can hang out and talk about, whichever choice you guys vote on the most. I'm hoping to have a decision by Monday, so make sure you get your voting in by then. All right, so with all of that out of the way, let's get into this week's news update. On Monday, 5 Americans who were wrongfully detained were released from custody in Iran. Among the 5 were, and we all know I'm going to butcher these names, so I'm apologizing in advance. There was Ahmad Shagari, Morad Tabaz, and Simak Namazi. The prisoners' release was part of a deal that included the transfer of $6 billion Iranian dollars from South Korea to Qatar, plus the release of 5 Iranians who were in custody of the United States. Now, of the 5, only 3 are known at this point. So I just am going to give you a little background on each of the 3 men that I just named who have been identified. Now, Simak Namazi, he had been the longest held prisoner. He had been detained since 2015. He was arrested on a business trip to Iran and was charged with having, quote, relations with a hostile state, end quote, meaning by the hostile state, the U.S. The Iranian justice system sentenced him to 10 years in prison. Regularly, prisoners like Namazi are targeted because they have dual or multiple citizenship. And because of that, they, like I said, are often harassed. Morad Tabas was an environmentalist who was arrested on allegations of espionage. And most likely this was due to the fact that he had multiple citizenships between the US, the UK, and Iran. In November of 2019, he was sentenced to 10 years. Lastly, Imad Shagari was arrested also for espionage. And this was while he was working for a technology investment company at the time. He was released after 8 months in prison on bail, but had a travel ban. And in November of 2020, he was arrested again and sentenced to 10 years for espionage. These men, like I said, along with 2 others, thankfully were released and are back in the United States and, more importantly, back with their families. So, this is an incredible thing. And, it also kind of relates to everything we've been talking about with Patty Hearst and, being held captive, whether it's legally or illegally, in this way. So, very happy that, those people are back home with their families. Bravolebrities have been really hitting it in the news lately. Real Housewife of Orange County, Shannon Bedore, was arrested on early Sunday morning, like this past Sunday, around 1 a.m. and she was arrested for drunk driving and a misdemeanor hit and run. The recently released video shows Bador making, it looks like a left turn, into a literal house. She then backs out and drives off before parking in the middle of the road, getting out and pretending to walk her dog Archie. Which, I hate that he was even in the car. That poor babe. He does not even deserve to be involved in this situation. But apparently, according to sources, it seems like she was picking him up from her ex, John Jensen's house. I don't know. It's just all speculation. But that is what is thought to be the sequence of events. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. There were some minor property damages, and it was said that Shannon did sustain a few injuries. Again, not serious, though. She has retained representation. Coincidentally, it's the same lawyer that she recommended to fellow cast member Gina Kirsenchetter. I never really say her last name. I mean, I know who she is. I just suck at pronouncing last names. Not that they really mention it that much on the show. But it's the same lawyer that actually Shannon recommended to Gina when Gina had a DUI or was facing a DUI. Now, for anyone who is not up to date with Housewives of OC, this is a big thing because Shannon said on the show that she basically prevented Gina's kids from being taken away by CPS. Now, of course, Shannon tried to deny this, but again, she said it while they were recording on Housewives, so there is evidence of her saying it on the show. Anywho, obviously, don't drink and drive. That's not okay. Just, it's not worth it. But I am curious to see how this will play out with Gina and Shannon's relationship when they pick up recording. This next story literally makes me the most angry. I kind of feel like I'm seeing red. But a man in Bryson City, North Carolina, threw a puppy from the window of his car last Friday. Thankfully, this was caught on surveillance camera by the animal shelter called Paws, which was the shelter that this pup was just being thrown out in front of. It seemed like it was done on purpose. The pup sadly then proceeded to run away, and thankfully with the help of the community, because this area does not have animal control, they were able to find the pup around a week later. He was severely malnourished and covered in fleas and other parasites. And despite having been thrown violently from a moving car, he only sustained 2 small fractures and some small abrasions on his body. Thank God. Thank God. Seriously. That poor baby. He is, of course, under the care now of the Paws Shelter team. The shelter posted images from the surveillance footage to social media and requested help in identifying that sad excuse of a human being. Thankfully, he was later identified. The Paws director, her name is Beth Shroud, she filed the charges against the man and said that he is due in court later this month. His name has yet to be revealed. I don't know why. I have been trying to find it, from what I've seen from the images that they released, he's older, so it's not like we're dealing with a minor situation. So, I don't know why we're keeping this piece of shit's name under wraps, but, whatever. Thankfully, at least he's been charged, and hopefully justice will prevail. Because again, it's caught on video, so there's literally no question. So this should just be a open and shut. Oh, jeez. Hit my microphone. An open and shut case. For our last news update story, Sophie Turner is suing Joe Jonas for their children. According to court documents obtained by Page 6, actress Sophie Turner is suing her soon-to-be ex-husband / boy band / brother band member Joe Jonas for him to return their two daughters back to England, where she is currently filming this series called Joan. It is stated that Sophie filed the lawsuit on Wednesday morning, claiming that Joe, quote, wrongfully retained, end quote, their children from their, quote, habitual, end quote, home in England. It stated that the two agreed that England, not America, would be their permanent residence. Sophie allegedly agreed, quote, with hesitation, end quote, to have their daughters travel with Jonas while he and his brothers were on tour as a, quote, temporary situation, end quote, because he had more downtime during the day to spend with them. The documents also allege that Jonas also withheld the children's passports, which means they couldn't return to England. Jonas, of course, is denying these claims. As of today, though, the children are back in the UK with Sophie. The documents also shed some more light about the reason for their divorce. In these documents, Sophie claims that this all started suddenly after an argument on August 15th, which apparently is Joe's birthday. I'm not really sure. I'm not a fan. However, that is really all of the update for them at this point, but I will keep you all updated as it continues to unfold, mainly just because I am super fascinated with all of it. So, all right, guys, that is all I have for you in the news update. Let's get into the last part 3 of the kidnapping of Patty Hearst.
LGBT stories are universal, but each one speaks to the individual heart and soul of the writer telling it. Do you have a story to tell? Or have you been moved by an LGBT book, film, painting, television show, or other form of media? Then the Gay and Lesbian Review wants to hear from you. The GNLR believes in bringing awareness to queer art and artists through reviews, commentary, and thought pieces in which the author relates their personal lives to a particular piece of art, a novel, a movie. In addition to the print magazine, the GNLR also publishes articles on its blog. So you can see all of this on glreview.org. That's glreview.org. Remember, you get 50% off your subscription of the GL Review magazine when you use the promo code ITBR50. That's 50% off your print or digital subscription when you use promo code ITBR50. To learn more about submitting an article for the GNLR, visit their writer's guidelines. The link is located at the bottom of their homepage. And if you have any questions, email Stephen Hemrick. That's STEPHEN dot HEMRICK at glreview.org. The GNLR and its readers can't wait to see what you have to say. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and I am so excited to be talking about Broadview Press. You might be asking, what is Broadview Press, Andrew? Broadview is an independent academic publisher in the humanities that produces high quality, pedagogically useful books for use in university and college classrooms. They publish in the humanities, mainly English studies, writing, philosophy, and history, just to name a few genres. And recently, I had on Dr. Jason Holt, who wrote all about the philosophy of sport. And what better summer episode than to talk about what happens when a philosopher dissects the beautiful aesthetics of sporting culture? In the spring, I had on doctors Kyle Stedman and Tanya Rodriguez to talk about what is sound writing, how to make audio projects in the college classroom, how to even have your students create podcasts. And then in the winter, I had on Dr. Jeffrey Weinstock. He talked about analyzing pop culture. Yes, I even sneak in some Real Housewives questions and how to teach composition and make it fun. He uses this whole metaphor about being a mad scientist in this gothic lab. And in the fall, I had on Dr. Ann Stevens, and she talked about literary theory and criticism. And yes, the university season is upon us. So, what better way to talk about the college classroom than to actually understand what is literary theory. That's a wonderful episode for all of you out there who teach literary studies. I love Broadview Press. Make sure you use their exclusive code. It's Ivory Tower on broadviewpress.com. You get 20% off all Broadview Press publications. Okay, until the next Broadview Press interview. And now back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room.
So, babes, we left off with Patty Hearst's story in 1979, and Jimmy Carter, the president at the time, had commuted her sentence after 21 months of prison, which she was sentenced to 7 years. So she barely served 2 years. I, personally don't think she should have at all. But let's get into the why. Now, the majority of people's favorite president and overall just adorable old gentleman, President Jimmy Carter, like I said, commuted her sentence, and he did it on the grounds that had she not been subjected to, quote, degrading experiences that she suffered as a victim of the SLA, she would not have become a participant in the criminal acts, end quote. And like I said, I completely agree with that. I mean, we're going to get into it a little bit more, but this was definitely like her participation in all of the crimes that she was accused of committing. I mean, no one's denying that she did them. It's the why that is the problem here. And I agree that the why is because she was in survival mode. She was being threatened. She was being tortured, sexually as well. So, I mean, not aside physically, I mean. So, she was doing what she had to do to survive. And sadly, in these situations, a lot of the times you wind up becoming an accomplice because of that survival mode. So if you remember last week, I brought up Stockholm Syndrome, which is obviously completely related to it. And, a little bit about the story behind how Stockholm Syndrome kind of came to everyone's attention. Actually, this story, Patricia Hearst's story, is actually a commonly used example of this syndrome. And to just give a brief science biology overview of what happens in Stockholm Syndrome, basically the survival instinct is the main trigger for this, obviously. And it is believed that by many psychiatrists and psychologists that the initial bonding moment occurs when, and it's strange, but it's when the captor threatens the victim, then chooses not to after a period of thinking it over. The relief that this creates, obviously, for the captive or the victim, then becomes transposed into gratitude, or feelings of gratitude. Also, along with being a captive, there's a level of, dependence is created on the captor. And as well as interpreting small acts of kindness, giving food or a blanket, etc., and kind of being seen those little things as being seen as good treatment, when in reality it's really just needs being met, right? So, as gross as it is to say, by making someone dependent on you for their needs, they're going to give in to your demands. That in and of itself is abuse. And, when you're actively taking away needs, and only providing, at certain times or whatever. I'm not talking about any other situation where someone would be reliant on someone else for certain, physical needs to be met is considered abusive. Obviously, that's not the case. But in this situation where it's actively being withheld on purpose, as a form of gaining control, then you're kind of stepping into fear conditioning, especially because in most of these cases where this type of abuse is occurring, some sort of physical or sexual or, both type of abuse is also coupled with this, especially in kidnappings. And as gross as it is to say this, it's a common tactic because it works. Now, after having her sentence commuted by President Carter, Patricia, because she prefers to go by that, not really Patty anymore, she went on to marry the security director of the Hearst Corporation, and his name is Bernard Shaw. Some sources also claim that he was also a former bodyguard of hers. The couple went on to have 2 daughters, Jillian and Lydia Hearst Shaw. And Lydia is actually an actress and model who is married to Chris Hardwick. Patricia and Bernard raised their daughters in Connecticut, and Patricia went on to become a board member of the Meals on Wheels organization. So clearly she's not like this hardened criminal or anything that, the prosecution tried to make her believe or make her appear to the jury. So whatever. Multiple documentaries were created about Patricia's kidnapping and her experiences with the SLA. But she also herself went on to star in a few films like Crybaby, Serial Mom, and Cecil B. Demented. She also made a cameo in one of my personal favorite Pauly Shore comedies, Biodome. I don't know if any of you know of that movie, but it is excellent. If you're a comedy fan, I highly recommend. President Carter continued to follow Hearst's case even after she was released from jail. It is stated that he believed that she was treated harshly by the justice system, who at the time wanted to punish someone for the social unrest that was happening in the 70s. In 1999, President Carter petitioned President Clinton to pardon Patricia Hearst. And in 2001, literally his last day in office, President Clinton pardoned Patricia Hearst. But it was a little bit of a rocky road to get there because not everybody was okay with this. Because, of course, the people who had prosecuted her didn't really want to admit that they were wrong, so they pretty much just dug their heels in. So, needless to say, they did not make this easy.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrew, and I am interrupting what I know is such an exciting Ivory Tower Boiler Room episode to tell you all about one of my favorite podcasts. It's called That Old Gay Classic Cinema, and it's hosted by Christian Garcia. Christian is joined with guest co-hosts to talk about classic cinema films that we know and love, and he analyzes them through a queer lens. So he's talked about The Sound of Music, Alfred Hitchcock, The Wizard of Oz, Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, and recently, Hello, Dolly. I actually was on his first ever episode to talk about my love of The Sound of Music and playing Captain Von Trapp in my high school musical. Then I was joined with Mary DiPipi, the host of True Crime and Academia, and our friend Travis Roundtree to talk about Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. Mary just had Christian on True Crime and Academia to talk about female poisoners, including the evil queen from Snow White and actual real life female poisoners. So Christian's podcast is the best. You must add it to your listen list. After you listen to this episode, make sure you head over to That Old Gay Classic Cinema on Apple and Spotify. Make sure you follow him on Instagram at That Old Gay Classic Cinema. And he's also on TikTok. Don't forget TikTok. Okay, I can't wait for you all to listen to That Old Gay Classic Cinema. And now, back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room.
Hey, Ivory Tower Boiler Room listeners and true crime friends. You've heard me gush over this incredible woman and her beautiful products. I'm talking about Mandy Made It. Mandy makes customized and original crochet and pre-cut goods. They are the perfect, unique, one-of-a-kind gift for literally anyone in your life. And And she makes incredible home decor. I still have my pumpkins that I put out every fall. I just love them. Check her out on Instagram at MANDEE Made It, or search Mandy Made It on Facebook. To order, just slide into her DMs, and if you mention the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, you will receive a free personalized gift with your first order. So, go on Instagram and look up at Mandy Made It, and Mandy is spelled MANDEE. Again, her handle is at Mandy Made It, Mandy spelled MANDEE, and order today. So if you are a Patreon member and are listening to this on Patreon, you're not going to be able to tell what's happening. But for everybody else, that is all I have for you this week. Do not forget to join the True Crime in Academia book club by going to patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room and then vote on social media for the book you would like to read. I will be making a decision on Monday, so send in your votes before then, okay? And until next time, my loves, I will see you all later.
Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby. I want to thank you so much for listening to the ITBR and TCIA episodes. Make sure, if you don't, follow, rate, and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Also, make sure you follow ITBR on TikTok and Instagram at Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and TCIA on TikTok and Instagram at True Crime in Academia. Also, we have a brand new Patreon membership system. So I just want to explain it to you all quickly. So if you want to become an ITBR student, it is $5 a month. You get ad-free ITBR and TCIA episodes and video interviews. If you want to become an ITBR professor for $10 a month, you get all of those ad-free benefits, but you also get access to both the ITBR and TCIA book clubs. You can join both book clubs, get ad-free episodes, plus you're going to get all of our extra video episodes. So I am rewatching Queer as Folk. Christian Garcia from That Old Gay Classic Cinema is joining us, and he's rewatching Smash. Mary is going to start to rewatch shows as well. You even get access to what I'm calling the ITBR Teaches. So if I'm recapping a movie or a TV show, including Barbie, Halloween movies and horror films, you get access to that as well. And then I also am offering consultation services. So for $30, you get your first initial consultation with me. It's a 1-hour private Zoom. I will help create your podcast, your media brand. How do you navigate academia as an undergrad or a grad student? Do you need help with technology? It could be teaching tools, Spotify for podcasters, video editor software. Do you want to expand your social media presence as an artist, writer, podcaster, or academic? Do you want help on how to create a public humanities identity like I've created for myself? So I'm offering that consultation service. You can find more info about it on Patreon. And you also can join our book clubs. If you want to just join the ITBR book club or the TCIA book club, you can do that for $4 a month. Patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. That is patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Thanks to the team, Mary DiPipi, our chief contributor, and thank you to our 2 new interns from Stony Brook University, Jonathan and Sarah. Bye, everyone. Until next time.